Mark Turner and Eric Mallory vanished into the Montana wilderness years ago, one on a hunting trip, the other lost to amnesia and shadows. Then, suddenly, a rusted red truck appears with Eric trapped inside, alive but silent. What happened deep in those forests? And how are these two men connected to a secret that could destroy everything? In late October of 2015, the small town of Cedar Creek, nestled near the edge of Montana's vast wilderness, was quiet and calm. Most residents were preparing for the coming winter, stacking firewood, checking their homes for cold drafts, and sharing stories at the local diner. But amidst this peaceful routine, one man was about to disappear, setting off a mystery that would haunt the town for years to come. Mark Turner was a man in his late 30s, known by everyone in Cedar Creek. He wasn't loud or flashy, but he was respected and well-liked. Mark worked as a mechanic at the local garage, fixing everything from trucks to snowmobiles. He was strong, steady, and quiet, with a deep love for the outdoors. Every fall, like clockwork, Mark would take a hunting trip into the thick forest nearby. It was his time to be alone, away from the noise of the world, to reconnect with nature and test his skills. On this particular October morning, Mark told no one where he was going. He simply said he planned to spend a few days hunting deer, as he had done many times before. The weather was crisp and cool, with a soft fog hanging low over the ground, and the smell of pine filled the air. Mark loaded his old red pickup truck with his hunting gear, a rifle, extra ammunition, camping supplies, and enough food to last several days. His routine was well practiced, and he left quietly, without any grand farewell. The town saw him drive away, heading toward the dense forests to the north. The truck was sturdy, a little rusty but reliable, a perfect companion for rugged terrain. Mark's family and friends weren't worried at first. He'd been on many hunting trips before, sometimes gone for days or even a week. What concerned them was the silence that followed. By the second day, Mark had not called or checked in. That wasn't unusual. He often avoided cell phones when in the woods. But by the third day, his wife, Diane, started to feel a knot in her stomach. Mark had promised he'd call by then to let her know he was safe. Diane tried calling his phone repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail. She reached out to his closest friends and neighbors, asking if anyone had seen or heard from him. No one had. As the days passed, Diane's worry deepened. She contacted the local sheriff's office to report Mark missing. The small force in Cedar Creek took it seriously, but with no solid clues, they faced an uphill battle. Mark was an experienced outdoorsman, and it was possible he'd just wandered further into the forest than expected, or lost track of time. They organized search teams, local volunteers, and even a few trackers with dogs to comb the area. But despite their efforts, nothing was found. The forest around Cedar Creek was thick and wild. Tall evergreens towered above, casting shadows over uneven ground covered with fallen leaves, moss, and tangled underbrush. Streams trickled quietly through rocky beds, and the occasional animal track could be seen: deer, foxes, and even bears. It was easy to get turned around here, especially as winter approached and daylight hours shrank. The dense canopy made it hard to spot any movement from the air or from the road. Searchers walked for miles, calling Mark's name, shining flashlights, into caves and hollows, checking along trails and old logging roads. They found nothing but empty campsites abandoned long ago and signs of recent wildlife activity. Mark's hunting license and permits showed he was allowed to hunt in the area, But that didn't help locate him. The red pickup truck was a crucial part of the search. It had been left parked at the forest's edge, near a dirt road that led deeper into the wilderness. The truck's engine was cold, the windows slightly fogged, and the door unlocked. Inside, searchers found Mark's hunting gear neatly packed, and a few cans of food on the floor. The keys were still in the ignition. It was as if he had planned to return quickly, but never did. Speculation grew among the townspeople. Some believed Mark had fallen and been injured, trapped somewhere in the forest, unable to call for help. Others wondered if he had encountered a wild animal, though no signs of a struggle were found. There was also talk of something stranger, that maybe Mark had been taken against his will. But no one could say how or why. The sheriff's office kept the investigation open but limited by the lack of evidence. Mark's case was filed as a missing person, and the community waited anxiously for any sign of him. As days turned to weeks, hope began to fade. Diane refused to give up. She visited the search base daily, handing out flyers, organizing volunteers, and praying for a miracle. Meanwhile, rumors spread like wildfire. Some claimed they had seen Mark walking near the highway late at night, but those reports were never confirmed. Others suggested he might have staged his disappearance, wanting to escape his life. But Diane and those who knew him well rejected that idea. Mark was devoted to his family and had no reason to vanish. The weather grew colder, and the first snow fell. The forest transformed into a white, silent world where footprints vanished quickly. Searches became more difficult and dangerous. Even helicopters that flew over the area reported seeing no signs of Mark or his truck beyond what had already been found. Months passed. The red pickup remained where it was, slowly gathering dust and leaves. Occasionally, a hiker or hunter would spot it and report it to authorities. Inside, Mark's belongings stayed untouched. It was a frozen snapshot of a man who had simply disappeared. The town tried to move forward, but the mystery lingered in every conversation, in every glance at the edge of the forest. Mark Turner had vanished without a trace, and no one knew why or how. Was he lost, injured, or something worse? Or was there a secret hidden beneath the trees, waiting to be uncovered? As the first anniversary of Mark's disappearance approached, new questions emerged. Some locals spoke of strange noises heard near the truck at night, lights flickering deep in the forest, and shadows moving where no one should be. Others dismissed these as imaginations running wild. Yet, the unanswered questions only deepened. The sense of unease. For Diane and Mark's family, each day without him was a silent heartbreak. They held on to the hope that someday, somehow, the truth would come to light. Until then, the forest kept its secrets close, and the red pickup truck stood as a lonely monument to a man who vanished on a hunting trip, never to be seen again. Vesati. Months that followed Mark Turner's disappearance stretched into years, and the forest that had swallowed him up seemed to close itself tighter around the secret. Life in Cedar Creek settled back into its usual rhythm, but a shadow hung over the town, a lingering question mark that no one dared to fully confront. Mark was gone. No one knew if he was alive or dead, and with no new leads, the mystery began to grow cold. Mark's family refused to give up. His wife, Diane, kept his room just as it had been, with hunting photos on the walls and his favorite jacket hanging by the door. Each holiday, she placed a candle on the windowsill, hoping the light would guide him home. Friends and neighbors organized annual hikes and searches, but the forest held its silence, offering no answers. Over time, many in the town started to accept that Mark might never be found. Despite the official case being closed, rumors and whispers filled the quiet corners of Cedar Creek. Some locals spoke of strange happenings in the woods, unexplained. Noises echoing through the trees at night, flickering lights in the distance, and the eerie feeling of being watched when hiking alone. These stories were shared in hushed tones, half believed, as if admitting too much might invite trouble. The forest had become a place of mystery and fear. One common thread among the rumors was the red pickup truck. Though authorities had left it at the forest's edge after the initial search, it remained untouched. It was a ghostly reminder of Mark's last known whereabouts, covered now in dust and leaves, parked silently where the road ended and the wilderness began. Hikers reported seeing the truck from a distance, its windows dark and empty. Yet some said the engine occasionally rumbled to life on cold mornings when no one was near. The town's sheriff, David Harlow, was a man who had seen many cases come and go, but Mark's disappearance gnawed at him. He had been one of the first responders that day, walking the forest trails with volunteers, searching for clues that never appeared. Over time, Sheriff Harlow became convinced there was more to the story than just a lost hunter. Something hidden. Beneath the surface, something no one wanted to talk about openly. Occasionally, Sheriff Harlow would receive anonymous letters or phone calls from people claiming to have information about Mark. Most were dead ends or hoaxes, but one note stood out. It was scrawled on a torn piece of paper and left at the sheriff's office mailbox late one night. The message was brief. Look deeper where the shadows fall. No name, no explanation. The sheriff kept it pinned on his office wall, a silent reminder that the case might still be alive, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, Diane Turner found herself drawn into the web of mystery in ways she never expected. One afternoon, while going through Mark's old things in the garage, she discovered a small notebook tucked away behind a shelf. It was a hunting journal one Mark had kept over the years, full of notes about locations, weather conditions, and animal sightings. Most entries were routine, but one caught her eye. A detailed sketch of a remote part of the forest, far from the usual hunting trails. The date beside it was just days before Mark disappeared. Curious and desperate, Diane decided to visit that spot. It was a hidden valley, surrounded by steep hills and dense trees, where sunlight barely touched the ground. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine needles. As she explored, Diane noticed faint signs of a makeshift campsite, broken branches, flattened grass, and old fire pits long cold. It was clear someone had been here recently, but the place was too remote for casual visitors. Diane took pictures and marked the location on her map. She shared her findings with Sheriff Harlow, hoping it might lead to new clues. The sheriff agreed to send a small team to investigate, but they found nothing unusual. No footprints, no fresh campfires, no belongings. The area seemed untouched, as if the signs Diane saw had been there for years. Still, the fact that Mark had visited this hidden valley raised new questions. What was he doing there? Had he discovered something he shouldn't have? Around town, the story of the secret campsite added fuel to the growing fire of speculation. Some believed Mark had stumbled upon an illegal operation, perhaps poachers or smugglers using the forest for their own purposes. Others thought the area might have been used by someone hiding from the law. The idea that Mark's disappearance was linked to something criminal sent chills through the community. At the same time, other strange incidents began to emerge. Hunters reported finding fresh tracks near the truck, even though the area had been closed off to traffic. Cameras set up by wildlife officials captured images of a man moving through the trees at odd hours, wearing clothes similar to Mark's hunting gear, but with a face too blurred to identify. These sightings were never confirmed, but they kept hope alive for some and fear for others. As the years dragged on, the case attracted the attention of amateur investigators and true crime enthusiasts. Forums and social media groups formed online where people shared theories and pieced together fragments of the story. Some speculated that Mark had been taken by a secretive group operating in the area, while others suggested supernatural explanations, fueled by the eerie atmosphere of the forest and the unexplained phenomena. Despite all the attention, no one could explain the most puzzling detail. The truck. How had it remained untouched and undisturbed for so long? Why had no one taken it away or broken into it? The truck became a symbol of the mystery itself, a frozen moment in time that refused to be solved. The local police maintained their professional distance, but never stopped watching. Sheriff Harlow, growing more obsessed with the case, began his own quiet investigation, revisiting old files, interviewing longtime residents, and comparing notes from new reports. He found inconsistencies in witness statements, strange gaps in timelines, and unexplained movements near the forest edges. The deeper he looked, the more tangled the story became. One particularly chilling discovery came from an old prospector, living on the outskirts of town. He claimed to have seen Mark Turner just days before his disappearance, arguing with a group of men near a derelict cabin deep in the woods. The prospector described the men as rough and secretive, wearing dark clothing and carrying weapons. He said Mark looked scared but determined. When Sheriff Harlow tried to investigate the cabin, it was gone, replaced by overgrown brush and twisted vines, as if it had been deliberately erased. The story of the cabin spread quickly, and many locals began to avoid that part of the forest altogether. It was as if the land itself rejected the truth, hiding its dark past beneath layers of silence. The forest had swallowed Mark Turner, but it might have swallowed something else as well, a dangerous secret no one dared to confront. For Diane, each new lead was a double-edged sword. Every hope raised by rumors or discoveries was quickly tempered by disappointment or fear. Yet, she refused to stop searching. She joined a group of volunteers who continued to patrol the forest edges, looking for any sign of Mark or a clue that might explain what had happened. Their efforts kept Mark's memory alive, but also kept the mystery burning. Meanwhile, the townspeople of Cedar Creek learned to live with the unknown. Some avoided the forest entirely, wary of what might be lurking beyond the trees. Others felt a strange pull, drawn to the place where Mark had last been seen. The forest was both a sanctuary and a prison, a place where nature thrived but secrets festered. And then, just when it seemed the story had reached a dead end, a new chapter was about to begin. One that would change everything the town thought. It knew about Mark Turner, his disappearance, and the truck that waited silently at the edge of the wilderness. 6 years had passed since Mark Turner vanished into the Montana wilderness, and the red pickup truck that had been his last known. Connection to the outside world remained where it was, parked on the edge of the forest. Over time, the truck had become a quiet, eerie landmark. Locals who passed by would glance at it with unease, wondering about the man who had disappeared, and the strange stories swirling around that silent vehicle. It was a cold November morning in 2021 when Park Ranger Lisa Mitchell was driving along a rarely traveled back road near the forest's edge. She was performing a routine patrol, checking for any signs of illegal activity or hazards to hikers. The morning fog was thick, and the trees loomed like silent sentinels on either side of the road. As she rounded a bend, something unusual caught her eye. There, parked almost hidden among overgrown bushes and fallen leaves, was the old red pickup truck. Lisa slowed her vehicle and pulled to the side of the road. The truck looked just as it had 6 years earlier, weathered, dusty, and covered in leaves. But there was something different this time. Lisa spotted a figure inside, slumped over the steering wheel. Her heart skipped a beat. The man was wearing dirty clothes, his face hidden, and he did not move. She called in the situation over her radio and waited for backup. Minutes later, deputies arrived, along with emergency medical personnel. When they approached the truck, the man inside was still unconscious, barely breathing. His skin was pale and cold to the touch. The paramedics carefully helped him out of the vehicle and began emergency treatment on the spot, before rushing him to the nearest hospital. Questions flooded the small town. Who was this man? How had he ended up inside a truck that had seemingly been abandoned for years? No one had any answers, and the mystery deepened overnight. At the hospital, the man remained unconscious for hours. When he finally woke, he was confused and disoriented. He could not remember his name, where he was, or how he had gotten into the truck. Medical staff gave him the temporary name John Doe and began running tests to find clues about his identity. Meanwhile, authorities examined the truck more closely. Despite its age and apparent neglect, the vehicle was surprisingly well preserved inside. The driver's seat was worn but intact. Personal items were still inside: a wallet with old receipts, a few cans of food, and a small notebook that looked similar to the hunting journal Mark's wife had found years before. However, there was no identification linking the truck to the man inside. Fingerprint analysis was one of the first steps. When the results came back, investigators were stunned. The prints did not match any in the national database. Neither did the DNA tests. The man's blood type and genetic markers showed no connection to anyone in the state, and no record of him existed anywhere in government files. He was, for all practical purposes, a complete mystery. The medical team worked to stabilize him, while the sheriff's office opened a new investigation. Sheriff David Harlow returned to the case with renewed determination. The truck, the man inside, and the cold wilderness around them now formed a puzzle that seemed more complicated than before. Locals speculated endlessly. Some thought the man might be Mark Turner himself, somehow returned after years lost in the forest. Others believed he was someone completely different, with a story that had yet to be uncovered. The man's blank stare and silent demeanor only added to the suspense. He was alive but lost, caught between two worlds. As days passed, the man slowly began to speak in fragments. He could describe basic things: a rifle, hunting trips, a forest, but could not explain his name or past. His memories were foggy and unclear, like a fading dream. Doctors and psychologists suggested he might be suffering from severe trauma or amnesia. But the truth remained locked away, buried deep within him. Investigators searched the area around the truck for any signs of recent activity. Surprisingly, despite the truck being parked in a remote spot for years, there were fresh footprints nearby. Some led into the forest, others toward the road. No one could say if they belonged to the man or someone else. The discovery of the footprints raised new questions about whether the man had arrived alone or if someone else had been involved. The local police widened their search, interviewing hikers, campers, and hunters who had passed through the area recently. One man recalled seeing a shadowy figure near the truck a few nights before the ranger found it, but no one else could confirm this. Meanwhile, the man's health improved slowly. Hospital staff began giving him simple tests to stimulate his memory, showing him photographs of the forest, the truck, and the town. He reacted strangely to a photo of Mark Turner, showing no recognition. That crushed the hopes of some who wanted to believe he was the missing hunter, but also pushed the investigation in a new direction. Sheriff Harlow ordered a detailed forensic examination of the truck's interior and exterior. They found nothing out of place except for one hidden compartment beneath the passenger seat. Inside was a small, worn journal filled with coded notes and maps. The handwriting was neat and unfamiliar. Experts were brought in to decode the cryptic entries. The maps appeared to mark specific locations deep within the forest, some of which corresponded to places Diane Turner had mentioned from Mark's old journal. But the coded notes referred to something else entirely. References to meetings, a safe house, and warnings about outsiders. This hinted at a hidden network, perhaps illegal activities taking place in the wilderness. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that the man found in the truck was not just a lost traveler, but someone connected to a larger, darker story. The secret life hidden beneath the trees was beginning to come to light, and with it, the possibility that Mark Turner's disappearance was part of something much more sinister. In the days that followed, the man's identity remained a mystery. He was taken into protective custody as investigators tried to piece together the fragments of his story. Despite medical treatment and counseling, his memory remained broken, as if his past had been erased. Meanwhile, Diane Turner watched the news reports with cautious hope and fear. The truck that had haunted her family for 6 years suddenly held a new secret, one that might answer some questions, but raise even more. The town of Cedar Creek held its breath, waiting for the next piece of the puzzle to fall into place. What had happened to Mark Turner? Who was the man found in the truck? And what was the dark truth hidden deep in the Montana wilderness, waiting to be uncovered? As the cold winds swept through the trees, the forest whispered its secrets, and the mystery grew deeper than ever before. The man found in the red pickup truck remained an enigma. Despite intensive efforts from medical professionals, law enforcement, and forensic experts, his identity stayed hidden behind a fog of memory loss. The town of Cedar Creek buzzed with rumors and theories, but few facts emerged. The man, who became known simply as John Doe, seemed caught in a silent prison of forgotten memories, his mind a locked room no one could open. Sheriff David Harlow became increasingly obsessed with the case. He reviewed every piece of evidence connected to Mark Turner's disappearance, determined to find a link between the man in the truck and the long-ago vanishing. The coded journal found in the hidden compartment under the passenger seat had become the key to a new investigation. The cryptic notes spoke of secret meetings, unfamiliar names, and locations deep in the forest that had never been searched before. Harlow assembled a small, trusted team to explore these uncharted areas. They carried maps, GPS devices, and supplies, ready to uncover what lay beneath the forest's dense canopy. What they found would shock them all. The team discovered a series of old cabins hidden among the trees, carefully camouflaged with branches and moss. The structures looked abandoned, but had signs of recent use, fresh footprints, discarded food wrappers, and remnants of fires. It was clear someone had been living there, quietly, perhaps for years, Inside one cabin, they found old hunting trophies, weapons, and a collection of radios tuned to unusual frequencies. It was not a normal hunter's camp. It felt like the center of a secret operation. Among the items was a worn photo album. The images showed groups of men and women gathered around campfires, shaking hands and exchanging goods. Several pictures included a man who looked strikingly like Mark Turner but older, with a beard and a serious expression. His eyes, though faded in the photographs, seemed familiar and haunted. Sheriff Harlow felt the weight of discovery. This was no accident or simple disappearance. Mark Turner had somehow become involved in something dangerous, something hidden beneath the forest's peaceful surface. But what was it? And who were these people? Back at the hospital, John Doe was slowly making progress. Medical staff noted small improvements. He could now speak short sentences and remember fragments of his past. With the help of a specialist in trauma and memory recovery, he began to reveal pieces of a story too strange to be true. He spoke of being part of a secret group living off the grid in the Montana wilderness. The group was formed years ago by people who wanted to escape society's rules, creating their own laws and order deep in the forest. They hunted and lived off the land, but also dealt in illegal trades, smuggling rare animals, weapons, and sometimes people. It was a hidden world, dangerous and secretive, known only to a few. According to John Doe, Mark Turner had stumbled into this world by accident. During one of his hunting trips, Mark found evidence of the group's activities: hidden caches, strange symbols carved into trees, and signs of violence. Realizing the danger, Mark tried to leave quietly, but the group caught him. They wanted to keep their secret safe at any cost. John Doe claimed he was also captured, forced to join the group, and made to follow their rules under threat of harm. Over time, he lost his identity and past, living only to survive in the harsh wilderness. His escape and discovery in the truck was a desperate bid for freedom. These revelations sent shockwaves through the sheriff's office. If true, the forest around Cedar Creek was home to a hidden society operating outside the law, responsible for Mark Turner's disappearance and possibly many other crimes. The town, once peaceful, now faced the terrifying possibility of a secret menace lurking just beyond their doorstep. The sheriff ordered increased patrols and surveillance in the forest. Deputies set up hidden cameras and checkpoints along roads leading to the cabins. They also reached out to state and federal authorities for support, knowing the scale of the situation might be beyond their capacity. Meanwhile, Diane Turner was caught between hope and fear. The idea that Mark had been alive all this time, trapped in a dangerous world, gave her strength. But the thought of what he might have endured filled her with dread. She clung to the fragments of hope that one day Mark might return home. The town reacted in mixed ways. Some people demanded the forest be closed off completely, afraid of the secret group and what they represented. Others felt anger and betrayal. How could something so dark exist unnoticed for so long? Still, many refused to believe the worst, hoping the truth would be less frightening. The media caught wind of the story, and reporters descended on Cedar Creek, turning the small town into a hub of attention. Journalists interviewed Diane, Sheriff Harlow, and locals, piecing together the unfolding drama. Speculation ran wild. Was Mark Turner alive or dead? Was John Doe really connected to the secret group? The answers were elusive, but the tension in the town was undeniable. Inside the hospital, John Doe continued to reveal more details. He spoke of violent confrontations within the group, betrayals, and power struggles. Some members wanted to expand their influence beyond the forest, while others sought to remain hidden. These divisions often led to secret meetings in the cabins, planning and plotting in the shadows. One particularly chilling detail was the mention of a safe house near Cedar Creek, a location used by the group to store illegal goods and hold captives. Authorities had never found this place, but John Doe described it as a large underground bunker, well concealed and heavily guarded. The search for the safe house became a priority. Using the coded maps and John Doe's descriptions, teams scoured the forest for any signs of hidden entrances or tunnels. Months of searching uncovered nothing, deepening the mystery. Then, late one night, a breakthrough came. A hiker reported hearing voices near an old mining shaft just outside the forest. Deputies rushed to the scene and discovered a concealed trapdoor leading to a tunnel system beneath the ground. Inside, they found evidence of recent habitation, food containers, clothing, and tools. The underground bunker was more extensive than anyone had imagined. It had multiple rooms, including a makeshift prison cell with chains and restraints. While empty at the time of discovery, the place held undeniable proof of the secret group's dark activities. The sheriff's team collected everything carefully, documenting and photographing the scene. The discovery validated John Doe's story and confirmed that the forest hid a dangerous, hidden world. It also raised urgent questions. How many others had been trapped here? Was Mark Turner one of them? As news of the bunker spread, the town of Cedar Creek braced for the consequences. Families who had enjoyed peaceful lives suddenly faced the reality that danger had been living in the shadows. Authorities increased efforts to find any remaining members of the secret group and bring them to justice. Yet, despite all the evidence and discoveries, Mark Turner's fate remained unknown. The mystery of what happened to him deep in the forest persisted, unanswered and haunting. Diane Turner continued her own search, refusing to give up hope. She joined the official investigations, providing Mark's old journals and memories to help the case. Every new clue, every whispered rumor, kept her fighting for the truth. The forest, with its ancient trees and hidden tunnels, held its secrets tightly. But with every step forward, the light of discovery pushed through the darkness. The truth about Mark Turner, the secret group, and the red pickup truck was finally beginning to emerge. And as the small town of Cedar Creek waited for answers, the shadows in the forest grew longer, as if warning that not all secrets were meant to be uncovered. Months passed after the discovery of the underground bunker near Cedar Creek, but the mystery surrounding Mark Turner and the secret group operating in the Montana wilderness remained far from solved. The town had been shaken to its core. What started as a missing hunters case had evolved into a dark investigation revealing a hidden world of crime, fear, and secrets that no one could have imagined. Sheriff David Harlow's team worked tirelessly to identify and capture members of the secret group. With federal agents now involved, the search intensified. Informants came forward, fearful of the group's reach and willing to share what little they knew. It became clear that this was not just a local issue. The network extended far beyond the forest, involving smuggling routes and illegal deals across state lines. Despite all the efforts, Mark Turner's whereabouts were still unknown. The man found in the truck, John Doe, was now stable but remained unable to recall his true identity. His memory was patchy at best, and no new leads emerged from his confused recollections. Then, a startling breakthrough came unexpectedly. A young woman named Claire, whose brother had disappeared years ago in a neighboring county, contacted the sheriff's office with information. She had been following the case closely and recognized a symbol in one of the coded journals recovered from the bunker. It matched a tattoo her brother had, a tattoo she had never understood until now. Claire explained that her brother, Michael, had been involved with a group that matched the description of the secret community living in the forest. He had vanished suddenly, just like Mark Turner. Her tip led authorities to a remote cabin on the edge of the state line, long abandoned but containing recent signs of life. The team moved quickly to search the cabin. Inside, they discovered documents, photographs, and video recordings left behind by the group. The footage was chilling. It showed meetings between members discussing their plans and conflicts, and in some clips Mark Turner appeared, alive but worn down, guarded, and forced to take part in activities against his will. One video showed Mark arguing with a man identified as the group's leader, a ruthless figure known only as the Wolf. The footage suggested Mark had tried to escape multiple times but was always caught and punished. The group had powerful connections and resources that made them nearly impossible to track. The sheriff's team now had proof that Mark Turner was alive, trapped somewhere, and that the group's control extended far beyond Cedar Creek. This revelation reignited the search with new urgency. Using clues from the cabin and the coded journals, search parties combed the surrounding forests, following faint trails and hidden paths. John Doe, now showing flashes of memory, was brought to the search site. His responses helped narrow down the possible locations where Mark might be held. Weeks of grueling searching through dense woods and steep hills finally paid off. A secluded area, well hidden by natural rock formations and thick underbrush, revealed a heavily fortified camp. It was guarded by armed men and dogs, a clear sign that this was no ordinary hunting site. Law enforcement prepared a plan to raid the camp, but they knew it would be dangerous. They waited for backup, coordinating with state and federal tactical units. On a cold, gray morning, the operation began. The raid was swift and intense. Officers moved through the camp, surprising many members who were caught off guard. In the chaos, several captives were found, weakened but alive, hidden in underground cells similar to those in the bunker. And then, in one of the last rooms, they found Mark Turner. He was alive but barely. Years of captivity had taken a heavy toll. His clothes were torn, his beard long and wild, and his eyes reflected a mix of relief and disbelief. Mark was rushed to the hospital, where doctors began treating his physical and emotional wounds. The rescue was a triumph, but the investigation was far from over. Authorities arrested dozens of members of the secret group, including key figures involved in the illegal operations. Evidence seized from the camp and bunker revealed a sophisticated network dealing in smuggling, human trafficking, and violence. John Doe was identified as Eric Mallory, a man who had once been a member of the group but had escaped years earlier. His amnesia had been caused by trauma and exposure to the harsh conditions of life in the wilderness. His escape and survival in the truck had been a turning point that eventually led to the group's downfall. As Mark recovered, he began to share his story. He described how the group had trapped him after he accidentally discovered their secrets. He spoke of the constant fear, forced labor, and attempts to communicate with the outside world, all of which had been brutally crushed. Mark's detailed accounts helped build the case against the group and bring justice to those they had harmed. Diane Turner finally received the closure she had desperately sought for years. Though Mark was physically and emotionally scarred, he was home. The community came together to support the family, and the story of Mark's survival and the group's exposure became a symbol of hope and resilience. The forest that once hid darkness now held a different meaning, a reminder that even in the deepest shadows, truth can break through. The red pickup truck, which had been a haunting mystery for so long, became a symbol of survival and the beginning of a long journey toward healing. Though many questions were answered, some mysteries remained. The full extent of the group's network and the number of victims might never be known. The wilderness of Montana, vast and wild, still held secrets beneath its canopy. For Cedar Creek, life slowly returned to normal. But the story of Mark Turner and the man who vanished on a hunting trip would never be forgotten. It was a tale of disappearance, survival, and the courage to face the unknown, a true crime that revealed the darkness lurking just beyond the edge of the forest.